But we had an armorer, if you remember. We had that guy, John, who was, and actually any movie I've ever worked on, I don't care how big the budget, how Hollywood or non-Hollywood, on that film, this guy, John, he took that gun out of your hands when you were off he took the gun. And it was all safety first. And there were no accidents, unfortunately, like what happened to Bruce Lee's son, which never should have happened.
Another actor, too, died around that time.
Yes.
John Hexum.
John Eric Hexum, that's right. Similar there.
He was killed.
Well, my oldest brother was a cop, so I had no problem dealing with weapons. But I had Uzi, and I also had a machete. And I didn't know why I had the machete until we got to a certain scene. And that scene is one of the scariest scenes out there. My son, who was a cop, and he'd show us to his cop buddies.
He's a real gentleman, too. I've met him.
All right, and he'd show it to his cop buddies. The whole movie, and the scene that got them the most, was the scene when you chopped his arm off.
That's an intense scene.
They flinched.
Well, you know, it was funny when I thought George was so brave when he like zeroed in on the stump of it, you know, and put that, you know, that's intense that's an intense decision to do in a horror film. And at the time, I thought it was very brave, and we had a blast doing it. Do you remember it was the first time we did it?
You know, I want to say, and it's almost a little embarrassing, but when I first saw the dailies of some of the effects scenes, I started feeling nauseated.
I believe it.
But I tried to keep a straight face in front of Tom and Greg Nicotero and Howard Burke, you know. But I was sitting there going, I've never seen anything like that.
Right.
I mean, I've seen films, but nothing like that. Not the way George filmed it, and of course with Tom's, you know, genius. There were scenes that, just made me go, oh my God, you know. And when the movie came out to the theater, I took a date. Well, I found out she wasn't the right one for me, you know, which she just looked like she was in shock, you know. But at that time, I think when the film came out, the rating system was it was a whole different ball game back at that day. And George took the risk of putting this visceral images on film that is why it has such a fan base to this day. I mean, besides the fact that all of your amazing talent, but it took a lot of bravery for him to do it that way. And,
I agree.
Yes, the scene with the arm chopping, you know, of course, I think they, you know, had many different, where they strapped the arm back and then chopping at the rubber arm and trying to get the blood flowing and everything. But such an amazing
And it bouncing off the first time.
That's right.
We set the shot up. I'm sure if you're a fan of the movie, you probably know this already, but they, you know, it was, I don't know if it was rubber. It was rubber because I went to chop and it just bounced right back.
Sometimes.
But the wax, they made it out of wax.
So they were like
sunk it and slide it.
Sticking through it.
But the most dynamic moment in the scene was George's creativity, because he was really on his game as a director at that point. And when she chops his arm off and we drew the torch and all of that, and Laurie's just shaking there, George said, what I want you to do is I just want you to turn her toward you. And that was his direction. It wasn't my idea. It wasn't. And I turned Laurie to me, and she hugged me. And that capped the scene, because she was in trauma at that particular moment in time. So
Do you remember, was that spontaneous?
that was
I mean, when he told
that.
you to do that, he didn't say for me to hug you. Did he?
No, he didn't say that part. He just told me to turn.
Right, so it was an automatic.
A natural
Yeah.
See,
reaction.
that's the thing George would let us do as actors. I didn't remember, I mean, I remember doing it and I loved, I thought it was a great part for Sarah, a point in the movie where she actually is probably the strongest, where she gets to show her emotions, you know. She sort of had to hide her emotions the whole time. And at that moment when she was able to break down, it was probably her strongest moment of all.
Well, it's great for me because I get asked for a lot of hugs
Oh,
because of that scene. I really love it.
Terry's huggable.
George making you such a strong female character at that time of that film really was breaking boundaries in so many ways. And you have, I mean, there have been many to follow since your part in that, but I think George was a real pioneer.
He was, right. I feel very fortunate as an actress to have played the part, and yeah, it was a great honor, really. But it was funny because my agent at the time, you know, it wasn't a good thing to do a horror movie. You know, I mean, they were almost ashamed of it. It's funny, and it was such a wonderful part, and they had no idea what they were talking about.
They were freaked out. That's
Really, they
what
were freaked out, and it was the best decision I ever made, really. Yeah, and very, very lucky, very fortunate.